Okay. Can you guys start off with your name?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Marr, and this is my brother.
Yeah, Adam Marr, former captain and Apache helicopter pilot.
Yeah, I was Special Forces Green Beret. Yep.
Okay. Alrighty. So first, let's talk about Andrew here. You, from what I gather, had a career in the NFL. You started your life out not necessarily in the military, and you had other aspirations.
Yeah.
Let's start with what happened there.
Yeah, well, I always, that was my passion early on in life, and that was football. And that got me all the way to college and had a promising career there. Had an injury before my senior year, which scared away any would-be prospects. And so once I graduated college, it was a natural progression. I was doing what I wanted to do in college, and that was play football. The war kicked off, as we know, 2001, invaded Iraq in 2003, and I always thought that, man, if football doesn't work out, that's something I want to pursue, because I felt like there's men my own age tonight putting it on the line for the country, and I'm out chasing my own ambitions. And so when I was finished with college, it was just a natural progression to want to get into the Army, and chose Special Forces specifically.
Okay, and Adam, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Why
Yeah,
you got
definitely. Similarly, I was in high school when September 11th happened, and from there graduated and went to TCU and joined the ROTC program, Reserve Officer Training Corps. And from there, upon graduation, I commissioned as an aviation lieutenant, where I went to flight school, learned to fly the Apache, and then went on to serve just over 9 years as an Apache helicopter pilot.
Yeah, and so he commissioned, I enlisted at relatively the same time. So yeah, our paths kind of were mirrored
you
there.
were
Very much
thinking,
parallel.
but you were thinking a little bit. You had a little different goal in mind than
Yeah,
Adam here, so there may be a little bit of a rivalry here.
Yeah, no.
Well, he's my older brother of 2 years, so I was always, chasing after him, my whole
And
life.
you caught him, didn't you?
Yeah, he sure did.
Okay, so let's get back. You enlist. You go over. How many tours did you?
3 combat deployments.
And can you let the viewers know exactly what you did for the military?
Yeah, so as a Special Forces Green Beret, my specialty was being an engineer, which when deployed, that had me working in and with explosives as one of my main responsibilities for the team. With that becomes, I was a breacher, and so what that means is any denied points of entry to get into a house or any other means, we would place the explosive charge on that to get into the denied territory and go take care of business after that, and then dealing with IEDs, finding them, locating them, and then reducing them as well.
Okay, and did you ever consider that might be a fairly dangerous part of the war? Obviously, you're dealing with explosives. I mean, what were you thinking about?
Well,
when
I had no misconceptions about what was going on. No one knows about combat till they've been in it, right? But
Sure.
I knew that's what I felt like I should do. So I knew the risks. Post 9/11, we knew we were going to combat. That's why I signed up. I signed up because I wanted to go to combat, because I knew that there was a faction that wanted to kill us for no other reason than our life and our liberty. And we needed to stand up to that. We need people, we need men and women that's going to stand up for good. And so that's what it was about for me, standing up for good. So you accept those risks and you make a commitment ahead of time to your team and to everybody else that I'm going to do what I need to do when the time comes to make sure these guys get home and we finish our mission.
Okay, and then obviously you weren't a part of the explosive thing. You made it in and out relatively unscathed.
Yeah, and so, Andrew's down there breaching and doing the groundwork. I'm up in the air providing him overhead support, or for guys like him on the mission.
He's drinking a Coke, watching.
Wait a minute, I know what that's all about.
So I served in Iraq at a different time than Andrew was deployed, but one of my cousins was over there at the time, and I actually got to support him and fly overhead support while he was down there on the ground for the mission. And that's something that really resonates me and within the aviation community. Our motto is above the best. And that's because we're above the best men in the world down there giving them support on the ground. So for every time I was doing a mission, I was supporting Andrew. I was supporting my cousin. We call them our brothers in arms. And so for me, it was a lot more close because I had that connection to family members that were on the ground. Yeah. So every mission was of the utmost importance. In our community, we came out relatively unscathed as far as the explosions and things like that are not really typical of a normal aviator's day-to-day or combat rotation. Not to say that they don't happen, crashes don't happen, things of that nature. So yes, I was relatively unscathed and didn't suffer like Andrew suffered when he got back.
But it was really the luck of the draw on that, though. I mean, it could have
Of
happened
course,
at
yeah.
any time.
Oh
Certainly.
yeah, absolutely. He
Yeah.
was as much at risk as everybody is that serves when they're downrange for those things happening.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happened to you and when you realized that you were hurt and that the military. This was
there was no correlation between blasts and head trauma and the symptoms that come from that. And so after my last appointment, about 3-4 months after that, I started having issues that I'd never had before. And when I spoke up about it, it was hard to identify because there was nothing in my timeline that says, okay, there is this specific event that would cause you to have be having these behaviors, be having these problems. And so that's very difficult. And now we know, because you're in and around explosions over a span of years, that causes repetitive head trauma. And when you have these repetitive head injuries over and over and over again, and the brain never has time to heal itself, then you have these problems that we have, the problems with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress, which is cognitive problems, behavior problems, physical problems. I was having a difficult time, remembering, how to drive home. To complete a sentence, I would get messed up. I'd be writing something and forget what I was writing in the middle of a sentence. Have panic attacks and anxiety attacks. Bouts of depression. And again, I thought this was somebody else's problem. This doesn't happen to strong-minded individuals. And so that's one reason that it's hard for guys to speak up, but that's why it was easy for me to speak up, because I was like, this has never been here before, and I want it to stop. Somebody please help me.
Yeah, so, and you had a brother that you could talk
Yeah,
to,
absolutely.
and you were able to do this, because it's absolutely true. A lot of these guys, what I hear from them is, look, we're told, just don't think about it, mind over matter. Your Marines, your Green Berets, your SEALs, you don't do these
Right.
it's just suck it up and do it. You're a soldier, get on with it.
Very much so.
And then also they're worried about the stigma afterwards of being diagnosed with something like this. They're worried about their families being able to take care of them. There are a lot of different jobs that they'll look in your background and say, okay, that's we don't want someone like that. We're not going to hire someone like that. So you were lucky, because it seems like you got treatment relatively early, and it sounds like you went to Bethesda to the new TBI Center.
I was there at NICO, the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, and that is the Department of Defense's premier institute for traumatic brain injury.
Been there, it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 4-week inpatient program there. So they want to bring people in there that they're having difficulties responding to any treatment they're having at their home station, which of course that was me. And so they have a modality there that you have a whole team that's working with you. And they really work hard to understand everything that there is about you, so they can make the best decisions for you, and finding out what's wrong, and then educating you on traumatic brain injury and what that's all about.
That was one of the first times we started to get a deeper understanding of what was really affecting him, but there was also a lot of stuff that was lacking there, and from there we were able to find some other modalities and treatments that actually started producing real results, because Andrew had his worst episode after leaving NICO, and after the experts assessed him and treated him. And so their answers still weren't good enough. There was still so much that they didn't know, and things that weren't getting addressed and fixed.
And let me ask you this, though. I mean, do you think, and I've heard this criticism as well with the veterans, not the veterans themselves, but with the VA and with TRICARE and whatnot, these doctors are more apt to put you on a number of medications rather than treat the root cause and get it. It's almost like, we have drugs that can cure cancer and things of that, but a lot of people don't want to do that. Puts them out of business. What's your experience with that? Is that something that you felt when you were there at the, I've been there. It's a beautiful facility there at Bethesda. The families, the place for them to stay. Explain a little bit about that process, because warriors don't want to take drugs.
Before he elaborates on that, I'd like to give kind of an analogy to kind of show, and that's like you have a house that's burning and it's on fire. So it's been affected, and you're going to go and treat it. The fire department shows up, they go in, they unscrew the fire detector and replace the batteries. You know, that's essentially what the medical system is doing right now with the medication they're giving. We're saying, no, 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 there's a house on fire. You need to put the fire out before you worry about preventative putting the batteries back in.
Yeah, and it's a good analogy. So, you know, again, you're saying, hey, I'm having all these new problems, and they never happened before. I was never like this. And instead of asking good questions, instead of doing a detailed history analysis on the person, they say, okay, you're having behavioral problems, you're having bouts with depression, let's try an antidepressant, and let's try an anti-anxiety. And again, that doesn't fix the underlying condition, it just masks the symptom. And these mind-altering drugs have horrible side effects. Yeah. And so I came out the worse for being on them. So I started, you know, on no medications, and then after NICO, I'm on 13 different medications.
13.
1-3, you know. Yeah. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not sleeping. I'm not thinking clearly. I'm making all kinds of decisions that I don't want to be making. And what's worse is it's not affecting me specifically. It's affecting my wife, it's affecting my children, it's affecting my brothers, it's affecting the people who are counting on me to do the right thing in the line of fire, you know, those things. And so when you get there and you're on 13 medications and you're having more problems, you're thinking, my life is over. You know, they're telling me this is the new you, this is a life sentence, this is your new life sentence. Just learn how to live with inside it. And we refused to accept that. They said, we're not going to take it, we're going to find a different way, and then we're going to turn around and give it to other people.
You can see. Yes.
I was going to say, what was your low point then?
Well, my low point was waking up one day, finding myself on 13 medications, being an alcoholic. My wife was 9 months pregnant with our 5th child, and her request of me was to keep my if I could keep my drinking down for the day in case she went into labor, so she didn't have to drive herself to the hospital. And that probably wasn't even the lowest point, but that's where I realized, hey, this is not working. What I'm being wholesale given couldn't be further from the right thing.
So you didn't find the doctors necessarily receptive to trying to figure out what was really, or detecting what was really wrong? Do you feel that there was a lot more research they could have provided?
Yeah, I was given a lot of misinformation and bad information now that we're educated on it. And you know, being talked to by a psychiatrist or a neurologist or endocrinologist who's questioning if I'm really being authentic with my concerns. You know what I mean? This is a person who hasn't been in combat and does the same things. And I'm like, you have the audacity to question if I'm really being honest. Like, do you think I just like to come in here and talk about how my life's falling apart? Like, that's fun for me. But I got that on multiple occasions. Yeah. Crazy.
And how did this affect you? I mean, you're seeing your brother being the strong older brother that you followed your whole life and worked so hard to catch up to see him come back and go through this. How did that affect you?
I mean, it was incredibly difficult, and it's difficult for me, just like every other family member that sees their loved one go through this. And Andrew was up, you know, paralleling my career as well, and at the pinnacle of success. And now he's down in the trenches of despair. You know, he just went over a few examples of some of his low points, but that picture he painted, you can see how these guys get to the point where they think there's no other answer but suicide. And luckily for Andrew, that wasn't the case. But what was the case was he romanticized it about at times, which he, you know, has told me and has spoken about, and also sleeping with a loaded gun, because that's the state of mind that all this has put him in. And so you can clearly see, you know, how these guys are taking that. And so
and
that's what we're trying to.
The thought process is, I used to perform at a high level. Now I'm doing things I don't want to be doing, and it's having eternal consequences on my family that I don't want to happen anymore. And then you think, maybe it's just better if I remove myself from the situation. And that's when it clicked. I was like, that's why we have guys killing them and girls kill themselves in record numbers now. That's the cycle.
22 that we know of. I mean, and that's, there are people out there that are saying that that's a low number.
Exactly.
And that's a day. So, you know, obviously you could have been there. And your wife and your kids must have been one of the motivating factors for you to finally turn this around. What was the process? How did you get out of this? And how did you find, you know, what worked for you?
Yeah, the first thing was I completely lost all purpose. and all hope. My identity was being a SF guy, a Green Beret, leading men into battle, killing evil, freeing the oppressed. That's what I identified with. And then I was told, you can no longer do that. And then that was just another crushing blow. So it took me a while to stop feeling sorry for myself. Because for a long time I was just doing that and drowning my sorrows and self-medicating and everything else. And then I realized, I am not the man that my wife and my children need me to be. And I'm not going to get better unless I take matters into my own hands. And I'm going to get better for my family. I'm going to get better for myself. And I'm going to find a way to get off these medications. And that led us to start looking at what else out there was working. We went to the scientific literature, started reading, started doing our own research, trying to learn about the brain. And that had us cross paths with a top neuroendocrinologist who's out here in California, Dr. Mark L. Gordon from the Millennium Health Centers. And he sent me an email. We had a news article that came out, and he says, hey, we've been helping veterans for a long time. Here's my medical credentials and everything else, and take a look. I think this could help you. And he had a podcast with Joe Rogan. He said, watch this podcast and see if there's anything you think might be of value. And I watched it, and the guy that was on there that Dr. Gordon had treated was the same story as mine, as many other men and women had the exact same story as mine, or the family member as what Adam's going through. But this gentleman was on 17 medications, had attempted suicide and these other things, and Dr. Gordon's able to treat him, and now he was off all medications and had returned to life. And so we started going through that process with Dr. Gordon, and that is doing an objective blood test, okay, to find out if you are deficient or insufficient in something that's produced in the brain. And it's called neurosteroids. They're chemicals that produce in the brain that are responsible for making us who we are. And so when we have head trauma, repetitive head trauma, the inflammation, the swelling of the brain builds up and cuts that regulatory mechanism off through the pituitary gland. And that's where the hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland, which controls all of our hormones. And so when those are thrown off, when those levels are dropped down, the result of that is there are the symptoms that you see from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. So if we can identify it and then replenish those to natural levels, bring your physiological levels back up to where they need to be, people get better. And I switched back on like that. And now we've done it for over 120 veterans, and Dr. Gordon's done it with 1,300 documented TBI civilian cases. So it's in the scientific literature. We have the empirical evidence. We now have the foundation to back up that evidence, and that's why we're doing media like this.
And you're here to.
I could not do an interview 2 years ago. I had a difficult time walking because I had such balance issues.
So who do you credit for where you are now?
Well, I credit my family. I credit Dr. Gordon, and I credit just the drive that we all have inside of us that says, "Go on, keep moving. This is something that you can do." So we're not offering any false hope. We're saying, my dad gave me some good advice, and he said, "Hey, son, I know that you're having a really hard time, and I can't understand everything that you've been through. But if you could find a way to make it about somebody else, to help somebody else, I think that will be able to help you." And that really resonated with me. And I was like, take the focus off me, focus on helping somebody else. And then it just clicked, like lightning struck. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm seeing it to all my friends. And I'm like, we have got to be an answer for this. We have got to help other people. So at that point, we, again, quit feeling sorry for myself and figure out a way I can help myself, and how can we help others.
And your skills as warriors here, this is something that prepared you for this, because this is what you're responsible for when you're overseas at war. You are looking after all the troops underneath you. It's your job to take care of the guys underneath you, make sure everybody gets home. So this now, your new foundation is the
Warrior Angels Foundation.
Okay. And the Warriors Angels Foundation, you're reaching out because you want to give back to the doctor who actually helped you, and you went through this, so you know that it works. and to give hope to these other warriors that are coming back and letting them know that it's okay. Because I presume the main goal here is to cut down these 22 suicides a day that should not be happening. And we're here, this is the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, and we're supposed to be taking better care of our vets, and maybe on the surface they're spending a lot of money to do so, but there have also been a lot of criticisms that they really aren't helping the guys once they get back. And so look at the camera here and you tell the warriors, you tell someone out there that's watching this what the process is, how they can come through and get this, how they can reach out from the, their low points and say, look, there's going to be a future for me. This is how I can do it. What's the process of getting through what you did?
Well, the process is, first, we're challenging the status quo. And like you said, 50-year memorial anniversary of the Vietnam War, been in combat since 2001. The status quo isn't working. And the status quo is medication and psychotherapy. So we're challenging the status quo by providing a superior alternative. And if you're out there and any of this is resonating with you guys, you need to do this. You come to our website, waftbi.org. That's waftbi.org. You can click for support. You'll fill out your information. All right, we would take all your information. You'll fill out a detailed health questionnaire. We'll get all that. Once you've been cleared for funding and you've met all the prerequisites that we have on our website, we'll send a blood kit to your physical location. Our laboratories are in Jupiter, Florida, Access Medical Labs, the most premier laboratory facility in the world. Lab kit will come to your house. Access Labs will make coordinations to send a mobile phlebotomist to your house to draw your blood. So you never even have to leave your house. They'll draw your blood, they'll send that kit back to Florida, they'll process it, send that data to Dr. Gordon, he'll write up a detailed report, and then you'll have a one-on-one Skype consultation with the top neuroendocrinologist in the world or somebody that he has directly trained and studied under him. So one-on-one care, highly individualized, highly personalized. Find out what you're deficient or insufficient in. You'll come to an agreement about what your protocols should be. Have a really good understanding of that. We have a former Green Beret patient advocate that's going to walk you through the entire process as well if you have any problems. And then once you guys agree on your protocols, they'll send us the invoice and they will go out that day or the next business day to your location. So world-class care to the veteran and service member wherever they're at, without having to physically go to a doctor's office. No waiting lines.
And the cost, I was going to say, that a lot of people may be worth.
Well, a 2012 Congressional Budget Office report said that the VA was spending an average of about $15,000 per soldier per year.
For TBI and post-traumatic stress.
Yep, and we've been able to bring that cost down to $5,000 per year, and that's what Warrior Angels Foundation will fund, is that veterans treatment for an entire year. But obviously, we're a 501c3, so we only are able to do this through our supporters and through donations.
Yeah, but the government, that $15,000 again is for medication and psychotherapy.
Yeah.
It's for the status quo,
Exactly.
and we know what the status
For
quo
life
is.
So you guys aren't getting any better with that.
So for
year
a third,
two,
the third of the cost, we can exponentially improve your quality of life in a fraction of the time.
And just quickly, what exactly is the treatment? Just,
we're gonna find out what you're deficient or insufficient in these important hormones that are produced in the brain called neurosteroids.
So it's not chemical.
No, it's
narcotics.
all we use natural supplementation. Okay, the protocols is a two-phase process. Phase one is get rid of the oxidative stressors, the free radical scavengers, which is fancy words for swelling of the brain, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the swelling of the brain down, and that doesn't show up in imaging. They can take all the fancy imaging they want. They're not going to show swelling or if those chemical pathways are not working.
Okay.
So here's the big difference. All right. So do that first. We'll get the inflammation down. Then we find and fix the hormonal imbalances. Right? They're in balance. Find out how to naturally bring that up where they need to be. And again, when we do that, when you do those protocols, as 1,300 documented cases, including myself, have shown, people's quality of life improves every time.
Okay, and when will they see the results? Is this a day, a week, a year?
It varies on the individual. Andrew started seeing the results almost immediately within the first day. Some guys, a week, they start to see improvements in sleep. and then they benefit from there.
So everybody's individualized, so people are going to have different responses, but most times 2 to 4 weeks people start feeling substantially better. Some cases it'll take 3 to 6 months as we have to alter your individual protocols based on follow-up labs. So we'll do follow-up labs every 90 to 120 days, see where you're at, see if we need to make any adjustments. And I say we liberally, Dr. Gordon or the medical professional does that, and we'll make the corrections. And again, everybody who's stayed in our program and has taken their protocols as prescribed, quality of life has improved 120 times through our Warrior Angels Foundation.
When you hear the testimonials from these guys that we've helped treat, it's stuff like, if I hadn't gone on this treatment, I would be in jail or I would be dead. My wife says, thank you so much, because I've given myself back to the family. And this is
My daughter says, Daddy, you're back.
Yeah, testimonial after testimonial.
I can work again.
The same thing that I contribute to him.
Yeah.
From where he was before to where he is now, it's 180 degrees. He's almost to his pre-injury state. And before he was a shell, he was a robot. He couldn't communicate and social. He would tell me the same things over and over again. I'm like, dude, you already told me that.
We're not offering false hope.
Yeah.
Everything is evidence and scientifically backed and validated, and that's important.
So how receptive is Congress to this? Because this is a new treatment. Obviously, it would save the taxpayers an incredible amount of money, but getting it through Congress and getting them to get on board and say, look, we need to try this, and we owe our veterans this. We ask them to go to the Middle East or even Vietnam.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go head to head, and we're going to show what our process does. And the American public is now beginning to understand that. You can't start turning on people whose lives were turned off and think that they're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, people are waking up.
The groundswell is starting to take measure here in America. And so we provide a superior alternative. We show the evidence, we show how and why it works, and we show the cost effectiveness of it, and then we let the American public decide. Congress, they're not going to have a choice. They can either be a good guy or they can be a bad guy. I think they're going to be a good guy eventually, but we're going to continue doing the right thing, not for the promise of a reward or for the fear of punishment, because this is the right thing to do.
So you're kind of like taking Ronald Reagan's. You're going to take this to the people. You're going to forget.
Exactly.
And Congress will get on board because you're going to have the
We got
people
enough people
buying.
complaining. We got enough people complaining out there. We're not doing any complaining. We're doing it the American way. We're saying, okay, you're doing it this way. We're going to come up with a better way through the free market, and we're going to make it available to everybody else, and then you can decide.
We're not pounding our chest saying, hey, veterans deserve this or we're owed that. We're not out there just trying to raise awareness. We're saying, hey, we have a viable solution. It works, and we want to take it to the masses. We have bold goals in the Warrior Angels Foundation, and by 2020, it's our goal to implement this protocol and this treatment in the Department of Defense and Veteran Affairs. We're only going to do that with the many that we've treated, the groundswell of support, and getting the Congressional Budget Office makers to pass that so that the military can adopt it, and it will happen.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're going to strengthen. The biggest thing that we're losing from the armed forces is experience.
Yeah.
All right, when you lose an experienced guy like myself or like the hundreds of thousands of other special operators, you can't quantify that experience. And so if we can implement this, we can stop this from ever happening. By getting a baseline blood test, we can stop it from happening, strengthen the troops, strengthen those units, which then strengthens families, strengthens children's. We don't lose the jobs there, and now America's national security is strengthened just by de facto putting these protocols into place.
And in essence, they're saving money because it costs a lot of money to train a special operator.
Oh, millions.
Yeah.
So
millions.
this is also something that, again, this is a cost savings to taxpayers.
Well, you got to look at the transition too from military to civilian. When you have that veteran that can hit on all cylinders, that can fully encompass the training, the leadership, and everything they've done, now you're putting an entrepreneurial spirit to go out there and create jobs to strengthen the economy. So it's more than just the service too. It transitions all the way over into the economics of it as well.
But here's another aspect of it. Adam flew an aircraft that was $35 million, cost $35 million. The maintenance on that was immaculate.
About $5,000 an hour.
Immaculate maintenance program. We need to be putting the same maintenance programs on our human capital that we put into machinery. You know what I mean? And we can do it for pennies on the dollar.
And we have to do it also without the stigma, because I think that's one of the biggest things that I hear from soldiers that have fought and whatnot. Their fear is that stigma of asking for help,
Right.
and needing to have this out there in a way and showing Green Berets. or
That
maybe
doesn't resonate with anybody more than this guy.
Yeah.
He's never been spotlight on me. He's never been, hey, I need help. It's, hey, who can I help with me? So it's foreign to be out here and telling the story like this. The only reason we do it is so that others that are going through the exact same thing can resonate and find out that there's a solution.
Yeah, as leaders in the military now, as leaders on the outside, we need leaders stepping up and saying, you know what, not only can this happened to me. And here's how it happened. Here's the results of that. But even better, here's how we stopped it. Death
Yeah.
came calling, it was at our doorstep, and we said, no, get back. We're going to continue living. And we're bringing that out. We need the right guys and the right women stepping up and talking about it. So that's why we've said, put us in. We're going to talk about it.
Okay, and then one last question here. We've seen a lot in the NFL. There have been a lot of stories about the concussions and all this. Is this something that could possibly work for other sports where these people, these players and athletes are injured?
Before he answers real quick, very much so, and it's even more widespread than that. There was an ESPN article, Lauren Mira, Dave Mira's wife, the professional BMXer,
Yeah.
talking about after the repercussions of his suicide. When I read that article, all the stuff that she listed that he was going through in his final days is where he was at. So it very much can, for veterans, extreme sports, NFL.
Yeah, the mechanism of injury is almost irrelevant. Whether it's blunt force trauma to the head, explosive blast wave, acceleration, deacceleration, it's not something specific to the veteran community. It's a wide-ranging thing that affects all of humanity. So again, just like military medicine is usually at the forefront of medicine because we learn things from the front lines, and that trickles down to the civil sector.
All the advances from every war.
Same thing
Yeah.
here. So we're trying to pioneer this on the leading edge of science and technology, saying we can treat combat veterans this way, but also we can affect all of humanity by applying the same metrics.
Okay. Well, we'll have all of the information about the foundation on at the website here at CW6, and I appreciate you coming in on Memorial Day. It's always too little to say thank you for your service, but thank you for your continued work here moving forward, and let's get all the guys out there that need the help get the help. Let's do that for them. Our country owes them that, and
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
It's been a
Kim.
real pleasure.
thank you.
Means the world.
Okay.